Chapter 14. The truck stops here. Shasta got out of jail a week later. She called me from the courthouse and asked for a ride. "Catch a cab, you fucking skank," was my only response before hanging up. I was still steaming mad. Who knows what kind of shit she was up to while I was out working all day. She could have had dealers over, could have been holding drugs for them, or driving around making deliveries with Mona in the car with them, sucking their dicks for dope, anything. I wouldn't put it past her for a second at this point. When she got home, she saw the damage the cops did to the door and said, "I'll pay for the front door and the bedroom door too, I promise." "Yeah, you will, and then you start looking for a new place to live. This situation is fucking over. I don't want anything to do with you anymore. I was almost shot by a bunch of thug-ass cops for your bullshit. Get the fuck out of my life." She didn't say anything. She spent the rest of the afternoon on the phone asking friends if she could crash at their place for a while until she could get her own apartment. Her friends Veronica and Bill said they'd take her in, I'm sure because they felt guilty. They were the ones that texted her that night to help them get some dope. A week later, Shasta gave me the money for the doors. I didn't know where she got it, and I didn't want to know. I got them fixed the next day. I had to figure out where I was going to live. I didn't want to stay in that apartment. Too many bad memories. And I didn't feel like paying for the whole place by myself anyway. I was walking Mona one morning and saw a building just 2 doors down from ours that had a for rent sign out front. There was a glass door with a keypad lock in front, but it was open. I walked into the courtyard. It was a nice older building, probably built in the 40s after the war. At the very back of the courtyard, up the stairs to the left, was an open door to one of the units. I went up to investigate. It was a decent-sized studio with an amazingly large kitchen, even bigger than the one in our apartment, a hallway with closets and built-in dresser drawers, a nice old-fashioned tiled bathroom with a sliding glass door to a big tub, with a shower that had great water pressure. The hardwood floors were pristine, and the living area had 2 big windows looking out into the courtyard. I liked that it was tucked away and quiet. There were some flyers with info about the price and what rental office was leasing it, and it was the same place we were currently renting from. It was destiny. Totally meant to be. It was still only a block from the beach, and only $745 a month. I called my rental office and put in a bid for it. They said I already had an impeccable rental record with them, and that I could move the deposit from our place to the studio, and could move in whenever I was ready. Aside from moving from room to room at the American Hotel, this was the shortest move I ever had to make. I loaded out the back entrance of our apartment into the alley, packing stuff into the back of my Scion, then drove it 25 yards down the alley and loaded the stuff up into my new studio. Shasta helped as much as she could. I got one of the neighbors to help me with the few heavy items I had, which wasn't much. I'd learned about the impermanence of life long ago, and always made a point of traveling light. A comfortable mattress, a good TV, a desk, a computer to write on, and I was okay. It was the 4th of July, exactly 1 year after we moved in together. When we finished loading in, Shasta came up to say goodbye to Mona and to hand over the keys to the old place so I could turn them into the rental office. She was really choked up saying goodbye to Mona. She was like a little daughter to her. The 2 of them got chubby, sleeping all day and eating cookies together on the couch. She picked her up and hugged her real tight. Then she sat her on my bed and gave me a big hug. "I'm sorry I got you all caught up in my shit. I really am." She walked out and down the stairs and into the alley. I went back in my place and shut the door, and you know what I did? I bawled my eyes out. I think I cried nonstop for a good half hour. Even after all the shit she put me through, I felt a deep and painful remorse for breaking it off. And also because I knew that she was far from finished with that life. She was going right back to it, doing who knows what, with God only knows who. She was in for a long ride down a rocky, treacherous road. It was truly heartbreaking. Even though we were never meant to be, we had spent a long while together, sharing laughs, tenderness, meals, drinks, snoring away the restless nights, looking for the sun, some of its light, some fresh ocean air across our brows, a little reprieve. I spent the rest of the evening unpacking and setting up my place and watched fireworks exploding overhead from the display down at the shore. It felt good getting settled in my place. I had everything the way I like it, clean, austere, open, and uncluttered. My sister gave me the kitchen table and chairs from our old house. It was a big one that you can make bigger by spreading it apart and raising up an extra banquet tabletop that was hidden underneath. The kitchen came with a brand new fridge and a gas stove. I put a box spring and a mattress on the floor and set up my TV and desk across the room. I felt very comfortable. No junkies, no drunken babble, no nonsense. I slept more soundly that first night than I had in many months. I had to haul a load to a couple of stores in Lake Forest, then one all the way down to San Diego. I never minded that route so much because I liked driving down the coast and stopping for lunch at a little rest stop that sat on a cliff overlooking the ocean near Camp Pendleton, between San Clemente and Oceanside. I hit my first stop in Lake Forest. Their loading dock was slanted downhill, and that meant I had to slide my tandems, the back set of wheels on the trailer, back to the end of the trailer in order to raise up the back end so the loading deck could lay flat, allowing the forklift to unload properly. Because the Gray Wolf was such an old heap, they didn't have tandem controls in the cab like a lot of newer trucks. I had to get out and pull the tandem arm, which sucked in the pins so they could slide back. This was often a hassle because the arm never functioned right, and I'd have to pound in the pins with a hammer to get them to stay. I managed and got the trailer docked. When they finished unloading, I pulled away and tried to pound the pins in again to move the tandems back into traveling position, but I couldn't get them to budge. The load was probably still too heavy, lodging them in place. Fuck it, I thought to myself. I'm not fucking with this thing all day. I left them in the offload position, got in, and headed south down Interstate 5 toward the San Clemente scales. It was always an eerie feeling pulling up to the San Clemente scales. You had to pass the San Onofre nuclear power plant. There were these two giant titty-shaped concrete containment bunkers I referred to as the atomic boobs. They were scary, because if the big one hit at some point, they could be breached, causing mass contamination. Everything in the sea and on the land for miles around could be poisoned. And it would be just my luck to be pulling right alongside it when a massive 8.5 scale earthquake came rumbling through. I pulled into the line where trucks passed through to get weighed. You cruised in at a speed of about 5 miles per hour onto a scale so it could read whether or not you were too heavy. If everything was good to go, they gave you a green light and you sped up to merge back into traffic. But when I passed through, I got a red light with an arrow pointing me to pull over into an inspection stall. Once I did, I heard a voice come over the loudspeaker saying, "Stars and Stripes driver, come into the scale office." I did as I was told. At the front desk, there was a CHP officer. He was tall and black and tough-looking. "You know you can't travel with those tandems all the way back like that, don't you?" "Yes, but I can't get them to slide. They're stuck," I replied. "Then you should have had a roadside mechanic come out before you got back on the road. Can I see your medical card and driver's license, please?" I handed them over. "Your medical card is expired," he scowled. "Every Class A driver has to get a medical exam to qualify to drive. You take it once every 2 years, so it's easy to forget. You stuck the damn card in your wallet and forgot about it most of the time. Sorry, but you're going to have to get cleared with a doctor before I can let you proceed." I was sweating bullets. My bosses were going to be pissed. I called Jody, my boss, and she put her husband Freddie on the phone. I told him the situation. He screamed and yelled. What the fuck, man? You're supposed to stay on top of this kind of shit. I told him he had to come get me, take me to a clinic nearby, and they'd release the truck. That was all there was to it. The damage was done. He showed up an hour or so later and picked me up. Look, man, I said, you can scream and yell all you want, but I've been working like a fucking dog for you guys for 4 years now, never missing a single shift and never complained about shit. The fucked up schedules, the piece of shit truck, the lousy pay. I took it all and kept my mouth shut. So if you want to fucking fire me, go right ahead, motherfucker. Freddie got real quiet. I don't think he expected me to lose my shit, but I'm sorry. I was fed the fuck up. Okay, man. Relax. I'm sorry, you're right. You've been a great employee. Let's just get you checked out, he said in a meek tone. We got to the clinic and the doctor took my blood pressure and tested my blood. About 10 minutes later, he came in with my boss in tow and told me he couldn't pass me to drive. Sorry, Mr. Pasquale. Your blood pressure is 170 over 85. You're a diabetic. Your blood sugar is 340, which is very high, and your weight is 370 pounds. You're a ticking time bomb. I'm going to recommend disability until you can work these issues out. My boss looked genuinely concerned. We got back in his truck, and he apologized. I'm really sorry, bro. I guess we have been pushing you too hard. You need to get your health in order, man. Take my truck down to the distribution center and leave the keys in the warehouse. I'll take the load and finish the route. We got back to the Grey Wolf. We swapped keys. I got in his truck and drove away. It turned out to be the last day I got behind the wheel of a semi-truck ever again. When I got back to the distribution center, I got in my car and headed back to my studio. It wasn't until I got on the freeway that it hit me. Holy shit. I don't have to go to work for a while. I was smiling from ear to ear. I hadn't had any significant time off in over 4 years. I realized in that moment just how badly I needed it. There was a tension releasing from my muscles. My head felt light and giddy, and the pain in my knees seemed less. I rolled down my windows and let the warm air in and caress my face. I felt free. But my joy was pretty short-lived. My bosses sent me to another doctor to get a second opinion. He was an occupational doctor who had an office near the distribution center in Santa Ana. I could tell as soon as he came in to examine me, he was going to be a tight ass, saying, "You seem healthy to me. You're just a big guy. Cut out the soda, the burritos, and your blood sugar should go back to normal." Which I found weird, since he didn't ask me a thing about my diet. "Your blood pressure is a bit high, but nothing to worry about. Just eat less salt. I'm going to recommend a month off to get yourself in shape. Then it's back to work." A month? A stinking 4 weeks to lower my blood sugar, blood pressure, and get down to a healthy weight? This motherfucker was batting for the bosses. They wanted me back in the saddle as soon as possible. They knew I did a good job, outlasting the other drivers in the fleet who were a bunch of lazy, degenerate flakes who called in sick all the time, got lost on their routes, showed up late to their drop-offs, banged up the trucks, or spilled over their loads on a regular basis. I was the best they had, and they knew it. But I'd have to take what they offered. Even a month off would do a lot for my disposition, though I doubted I'd be able to fix what was ailing me in that short a time. All I knew was that I was exhausted and felt like utter shit, and had for too long. The first few days felt great, sleeping in, waking up in a panic, then remembering there was no reason to jump out of bed. It was a truly amazing feeling. But the days seemed to be rushing by so fast, knowing that the 18-wheel coffin was out there waiting for me, just a few short weeks away. Uncle Robert had been laying low and making a point out of not pestering me. He knew he was still on my shit list, but I ran into him coming out of the 7-Eleven one evening. He sheepishly asked me if I was still mad, throwing his puppy dog eyes at me and smiling with that face, that laugh, that were so much like my father's. I don't know. Maybe I was in such a good mood from not having to work. I just couldn't stay mad. I invited him to my new place. He really dug it, even suggesting that we share it and split the rent. "Are you out of your goddamn mind?" I asked him. He laughed. "Can't blame a nigger for trying," he chuckled. I told him how the bosses were trying to fuck me over with disability, how the doctor was only giving me 4 weeks off, and quick as a whip, Robert started scheming. No. They can't do that. He's in the company's pocket. That's bullshit. I'll take you to the best doctor around, a regular Dr. Feelgood, Dr. Azumendi. He'll keep you on disability as long as you can get it, at least up to a year. I didn't know what to think. Robert was King Bullshit of Hogwash Island, but I'd be damned if he didn't seem absolutely sure of what he was telling me. It was worth a look. He took me the very next day to the good doctor's office in Cudahy. He didn't need an appointment, but the waiting room was pretty packed, and the doctor took a long time with each one of his patients. Uncle Robert had been coming to him for years. The doctor was what junkies refer to as a croaker, a doctor that will write prescriptions for anything you might need, as long as the price was right. He wasn't too greedy, but you'd have to pay him out with a little something extra after the cost of the visit. After waiting for over 3 hours, the nurse, who was the doctor's hot Russian wife incidentally, called us into the examination room. Uncle Robert came in with me. I'm sure he wanted the doctor to hook him up with a little snack too for bringing him some new business. Dr. Azumendi came in. He was a tall, slender man with wild blue eyes, a crooked little mustache, and a thick shock of white hair. He was Basque and spoke with a peculiar accent. "Mr. Robert, how are you? Is this the nephew you told me about on the phone?" "Hey, Dr. A. Yeah, this is my baby brother Victor's boy. He needs your help real bad, Doc." Yes, terrible. You obviously need much more time off than the other doctor gave you. You need at least a year. Here's the paperwork you need. I signed it already. You take it now to the Unemployment Disability Office in Long Beach, and they'll approve you for 3 months. At the end of the 3 months, you come back, and I'll approve you for another 3 months, every 3 months for a whole year. I was absolutely overjoyed. I was on the verge of tears. A whole year to get healthy, lose weight, rest, make the documentary, write, do whatever I pleased. I was at a loss for words. I felt like I just won the lottery. I thanked the doctor, shook his hand, and slipped a 50 into his coat pocket. Money well spent. And to be honest, it was totally legit. There was no real way for me to get 100% in 3 weeks. I was going to have to get on medication, on a serious exercise program and diet, and who knows how long it would take to make things right. Uncle Robert also told the doctor about my sleep apnea. He told me he'd send me to a very inexpensive sleep test center, and they'd even help me find an affordable BiPAP machine that would help me sleep perfectly throughout the night, something I hadn't done in close to a decade. It was unbelievable. Uncle Robert had really come through and redeemed himself beyond measure. The doctor slipped him a handful of Percocets for brokering the deal, and we were out the door into a whole new sunshine. One of freedom, of nothing to do, of nowhere to have to be, of the end of the road. I was extricated. I took the old man to the nearest liquor store and bought him the biggest bottle of vodka the place carried and a carton of Winston's. Then through the KFC drive-thru, bought him a bucket of original recipe, a large tub of mashed potatoes and gravy, coleslaw, and a mess of buttermilk biscuits. I called my bosses and told them that my doctor decided I was far too sick to come back in 3 weeks, and that I would be recovering indefinitely. They were pretty furious, it'd be safe to say, but there wasn't anything they could do about it. They couldn't fire me for being sick. They'd have to pay for my unemployment. They just bit the bullet and told me my job was waiting for me as soon as I was feeling good enough to come back, probably thinking it would only be a month or two. Man, were they in for a big surprise. A week later, I went to the sleep center the doctor referred me to. I was told to stay up the whole night before so I'd be able to fall asleep easily. Not that that was hard for me. I had been falling asleep on my feet for years. It was a regular doctor's office with a receptionist and waiting room, but then they took you into what looked like a room at a La Quinta Inn or something. The nurse hooked me up with hundreds of little wires attached to my head and chest, which ran into some kind of monitor. Then she went into the other room and talked to me through a two-way speaker and told me to lie down and try to fall asleep. I fell asleep in a minute or two, but woke up choking and gasping for air several times, as usual. Then she came in and told me that I had up to 15 breathing interruptions in a half hour, and that on average, I was probably only getting about 2 hours of deep REM sleep a night. Then she fitted me with a sleep mask, which was attached to a BiPAP machine. She went in the other room and said to tell her through the speaker if the air was blowing in too hard. I told her to turn it down a bit, that it was blowing up my nose too hard and I couldn't exhale. She made the adjustment and I was able to breathe easier. Within seconds, I was out for the count. She came back in the room and woke me up. I came to feeling more rested than I could ever remember feeling. She told me that I was out for 3 hours, but I had got more actual sleep in those 3 hours than I had in many years. It was shocking how much better I felt. I haven't slept a single night without my mask on ever since. It took 4 years of long, hard road and even worse luck, but it seemed that good fortune had found me once again. My disposition improved. My eyes were no longer permanently red and sleepy at all hours. I wasn't falling asleep behind the wheel anymore. My disability benefits were rolling in every 2 weeks. I started taking long walks, lifting my dumbbells, cutting my carbs, eating whole foods, including lots of vegetables, cutting out caffeine, drinking lots of fresh water with lemon, getting lots of writing done, and going to the local Kinko's to scan and crop photos for the documentary, getting them ready for editing. My whole world, my perspective, my daily routine, everything had changed. And it was about to get even better. Lourdes and I had been trying to get together and hang for a while. She still hadn't had a free day to come see my new place. But she called me one beautiful morning to tell me that the butcher and his parents were taking the baby for the day, and she had a rare morning all to herself and wanted to come over. My heart was pumping. She was my favorite person on the planet, and the reason I was even in Long Beach to begin with. We made plans to meet up that afternoon. I ran to Trader Joe's and stocked up on some goodies. I got some blueberries, some mixed nuts, a few bottles of Chilean Merlot, some goat cheese and sesame crackers, some salami, sliced prosciutto, spicy Portuguese sausage, and put together a little charcuterie plate. When she rang me for the door code out front, I felt my blood pressure rise. She looked beautiful and relaxed, ascending the stairs like an angel, a vision of all my desires and lust. Some women age hard, falling apart as the years pass, but Lourdes actually looked hotter the older she got. My mouth was watering. We had the best time, lying on my bed, popping one bottle after another. It was just like the old days. She was thrilled to hear that I got a whole year off work and had kicked all the garbage people out of my life. She said I looked better than I had in months. She brought a little glass pipe with some good weed that she puffed away at. She loved to smoke pot. It really did something good to her disposition. You could see the muscles in her face relax. She became more talkative, and she became more interested in whatever I was talking about. Some people become boring zombies when they smoked, dull-eyed and absent. But Lourdes came alive. I cracked jokes and made her laugh until she was in tears. I loved to make her laugh. Her smile was a jewel in my eyes. Before we knew it, it was dark out. Her phone rang. It was the butcher. She rolled her eyes in her eye-rolling Lourdes way and answered. "Yeah, I know. I didn't realize the time," she said, holding the phone away from her face and flipping it off. "Yeah, I'm leaving now. I said I'm leaving now. Fuck." She hung up. It was good to see that she hadn't lost her fire. She was not someone to push around. Her independence and fierceness was some of what I found most attractive about her. Neither of us liked to be told what to do, but we agreed it was great hanging out again and made plans to do it as often as possible. "Come over and see the baby tomorrow while Ken is at work. We'll take her to the beach and have a little picnic." With that, she gave me a big hug and left. There was a glow everywhere, a brightness and sweetness that I had not felt in longer than I cared to remember. I laid on the side of the bed that she was laying on, buried my face in it, and breathed in her perfume. I went to their house on Naples Island the next day. I don't know why, but I was nervous to meet the baby. I stopped on the way and bought her a little stuffed giraffe and a cupcake. I went up to the door and knocked. Lourdes came to the door in a pair of obscenely short cut-off jeans, a bikini top, and a pair of checkered Vans like the kind Jeff Spicoli wore in Fast Times at Ridgemont High. And in her arms, resting on her hip, was the most beautiful baby girl I had ever laid eyes on. She got big so fast, already a year and a half old. Truth be told, I became very emotional. Again, I know she wasn't mine, but being that Lourdes was the love of my life and the one woman I would be happy to have as the mother of my children, she just felt like mine too, in some odd, pathetic way. I held it all in, though, smiled, and just handed the baby her little stuffed giraffe. She smiled and flashed her little black eyes at me. I fell in love with her instantly. Lourdes packed us a picnic basket with fresh fruit, sandwiches, homemade potato salad, flavored bubbly waters, and fresh baked cookies. We drove a couple blocks from their house to a little strip of sand called Mother's Beach, a quiet little spot on Alamitos Bay where lots of parents took small kids to splash around on the gentle shore where no waves broke and the bottom was shallow. We sat on our blanket in the sand with the baby and laughed as she got frosting from the cupcake I brought her all over her little face. I felt for the first time how gratifying it would be to start a family, how complete it could make someone feel. All I knew was that those two little ladies were more precious to me than anything I had in my life. We took the baby down to the shore and held her hand while she dipped her little feet in the cold water, screaming out with excitement and splashing her little hand in and smiling, smiling, smiling. It was such a delight. With Lourdes staying home with the baby every day and me at home on disability, we started hanging out most days of the week, taking the baby and Mona for walks in Bigsby Park, or over the bridge to the Korean Bell, or just to the drive-thru at Del Taco and back to my place to have a little picnic on my bed, watching Netflix and playing with the baby. She was on my computer one afternoon. I was sitting in my recliner reading. I looked up and noticed she was on my Facebook page, reading a short story I wrote about my youth called The Junk Lady, about the crazy German woman who lived right next door to us who was a chronic hoarder. "Fuck, Christian. You're a goddamn great writer, man," she said, glowing with praise. She had always been very supportive of my work, one of the first people to read me on a regular basis, actually. which always made me very happy, knowing how well-read she was. She was a hardcore bibliophile, able to read whole books in a matter of hours. Why don't you write a book? A collection of short stories. You probably have enough work already. You could put it together in no time. I'd be happy to help. As good as you are, you're a terrible speller, and your grammar leaves a lot to be desired. But I can fix all that. Come on, it would be fun. Your work needs to be seen. That's all fine and good, but I can't afford to self-publish. Printing books is fucking crazy expensive, I said. No, dude. You can make an ebook. They're new. Lots of people are reading that way now. You can download a book on your laptop or iPad and read away. Here, I'll show you. One thing Lourdes was excellent at was research. She could crawl up the ass of any subject and dig up all manner of information on it. She started typing away, bringing up all sorts of things pertaining to ebook readers, the rate at which people were downloading books, how to publish your work, and how much it cost. A mere $120, whereas printing them was upwards of $1,000. I started getting really excited. I'd always wanted to publish, but didn't know the first thing about how to get a publisher to read my stuff. I look back many times over the years, thinking of how much I've written since I was 19, and how it was so much that I'd often run across things I forgot I wrote. And the woman I loved, supporting and encouraging me to make it happen, felt nothing short of incredible. It was almost as if Lourdes was my Anais Nin to my Henry Miller, the way she influenced him to publish back in the 30s. I was all in. I had even been working on a lot of new stuff no one had read yet, so I'd have plenty for a book. It'll be awesome. I'll come every day and we can eat and drink and I'll proofread and edit it bit by bit, she said enthusiastically. Yes, let's do it. It'll be a lot of work for you as much as I fuck up spelling and grammar, so I insist on paying you. I'll give you $150. Her eyes got real big. Whoa. You don't have to do that, but thank you. And I'll help you through to the very end. She said that was a lot of money for her. Even though the butcher made a very good living, he rarely left Lourdes with any spending money of her own. We agreed to get started as soon as possible. I have to get going right now, though. I'm having terrible cramps. Aunt Flo is visiting, she said, holding her stomach and wincing with pain. When she got home, she texted and asked that I send over a couple of the stories so she could get a start on proofreading them, between curling up in the fetal position in pain. I sent her a couple and thanked her again for inspiring me to do this. The next morning, I went to the store, bought her a bouquet of roses, some brownies, some cheese and crackers, a bottle of her favorite wine, and a nice big bag of weed I procured from one of Uncle Robert's burnout neighbors. Put it all in a paper bag, waited until I was sure the butcher had left to work, and left it at her front door. Then texted her saying, "Special delivery, your personal period coping kit is waiting on your front porch. Thanks again, Chris." 5 minutes later, she texted back saying, "OMFG, you're a lifesaver. How did you know exactly what I need to feel better when I'm bleeding out, you charming devil?" I didn't know the answer to that question. The truth was, I think I just loved and revered her so much, I was somehow empathetic to a hyper-intuitive degree. I simply felt it. I wrote her back and said, "I just know you.